everybody. It's really fucked up right now. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that everything going on in the world right now is chaos and fucked up, and it shouldn't be this way, but it is this way. Because pretending that everything is fine is not really my forte. But I figured keep certain things going, give some people some consistency, have a nice little cooking show is a little bit of a thing you can watch that isn't related to the news right now without trying to erase anything. So I stand with the protesters. But we're going to cook something really tasty today. It's not going to have a lot of nutrition facts to go with it just because it's an easy recipe and it's kind of rehashing a lot of what I talked about today. Also, it's probably not coming across at all on this camera, but my face is attacking itself. I've got like a major rash over both my eyes, which meant I couldn't put any makeup on whatsoever. So I wanted to kind of just screw around with the settings on this thing for a minute and see what happened if I could just put a filter on instead of makeup. So let's see what we got here. This looks like lipstick. What happens? Why does that say profiteroles? It looks like it made my face fancy, but it definitely says profiteroles on my forehead right now, so that's interesting. Okay. What is that say? I don't know what that says. It's cheerful. Definitely cheerful. This is just a butterfly. What happened? Well, it made my lips gigantic. I just need something for my eyes. Maybe my face has shrunk. Not for me. No. Something for the eyes. Something for... Okay, I mean, improvement. Eyes are covered now. Maybe not the effect I'm going for. What was this? Okay, that's a lot of eyeliner. Maybe a little too much. Freckles, okay. And a very narrow face. Again, not quite what I need. Just cover up the eyes a little. Little eye makeup. No, that is another language I can't read. Okay, I clicked on sunglasses, but now I'm at NASA. Yay, NASA. Okay. That is not my color. Not at all. Okay, so filters, not helping with the makeup problem. So you just get me au natural. There we go. So yeah, let's just be stupid today. We're making I had a friend request beans, which was a pretty broad topic. But I have a really favorite recipe that includes beans, so I was going to do that one for you guys. It's very easy. It's in my arsenal of quick meals when I come home and I don't really want to spend an hour cooking. This is a very fast thing to do. Just to really get things rolling, I'm going to start my pan. So you start with a pan with some olive oil. I like to use a little more olive oil than usual for cooking mushrooms because mushrooms soak up a lot of moisture before they start releasing their own moisture. So I'm preheating my pan right now. For this recipe, you're going to use mushrooms of your choice. I have shiitake and I have cremini, and they're both chopped up because I am lazy. I did not do the chopping for this. It's a little more expensive to buy pre-chopped veggies, but when you are lazy, if you can afford it in your budget, I'm all for it. You will also need some white beans of your choice. I got navy beans. You can use any white beans. It doesn't matter. You don't have to use white beans. You can use other beans. You can use pinto beans. Whatever bean you like. Get a can of it. You can use dry beans, but I've always found that dry beans are a pain in the butt because you have to soak them, and then you have to boil them, and they take a while, and it's a lot. These are pre-cooked. Canned beans are pre-cooked. I always get no salt added. That's because they put a metric ton of salt in canned products. The salt is not great for you if you're handling high blood pressure or are very stressed out or are prone to swelling, or you just don't want your feet and ankles to swell up a little bit. So I try to avoid too much salt in it. If I'm cooking with salt, I want to be in charge of how much is added and not worry about that there's stuff been added against my will. Just get rid of that. So I've got my white beans, I've got my mushrooms. You're also going to be using lemon. And my favorite, I've talked about it a lot, thyme. Thyme, like I said, goes with so many things. I'm a big fan of it in chicken. I'm a big fan of it in my eggs. I'm also a really big fan of it with mushrooms. Today's dish is going to be 100% vegan, and it is kick-ass and versatile, and it is a white bean and mushroom spread. I don't think I actually named what the thing I was cooking, so we're off to a great start here. We are cooking a white bean mushroom spread. I used to call this mushroom and white bean hummus. And then I had a friend who is Israeli who kicked my ass about that because hummus is made with chickpeas. If it's not made with chickpeas, it's not hummus. But you can use this like hummus. Same idea. My favorite way of serving this is to spread it on toast. Very pleasant. But you can eat it with a fork or you can eat it with veggies. You can put it on a salad. Anything you want to do. I'm going to show you how to make it and you get to decide what you're going to do with it. So I've heated up my pan on medium with olive oil, and I'm going to dump in my mushrooms. Lots of mushrooms, sauteing, good stuff. Alright, so ideally, you don't want to do this, which is crowd the pan. Because you want everything to cook thinly. I'm going to keep a very close eye on this, and I'm going to keep the heat a little lower than usual, just to make sure nothing gets burnt. But you want to have everything kind of in a nice spread out fashion. So maybe if I did this again, I would put one of the trays of mushrooms in, wait for a minute for it to cook down, and then put another in. I'm going to add a little salt. So like I said, I don't cook with a lot of salt, but a little bit helps. This is one of those times. So in addition to flavoring stuff, salt helps the moisture escape in vegetables. And we want that because we want these mushrooms to cook down. They'll express a little of their own moisture. And that'll help kind of encourage everything to cook evenly. So I'm just moving this around, make sure nothing gets too stuck to the pan because I overcrowded the pan a little bit, but it's okay. We're going to keep going because mistakes happen and who cares? Alright, so while this is starting to saute, I'm going to give it a minute and I'll just talk about some mushrooms. Mushrooms are really high in protein and they're very awesome for that. They're also pretty high in some other really good vitamins and minerals that our body needs. They're nice and healthy and they've got some iron in them. As well as, I believe, magnesium. The protein aspect is what I always loved about mushrooms. They've got great flavor. They've got that umami flavor that comes with a lot of meaty things and also tomatoes. Mushrooms have that as well. They are a natural source of what MSG is made out of. So glutamine is in mushrooms. Makes it taste super good. That's why they taste so good. Is my flame still on? Yes, the flame is very low now. Alright. But the protein part of mushrooms is why I like to emphasize mushrooms as a really great meal choice. Because if you ever are worried that you're not going to be filled up eating just vegetables, mushrooms will fill you up. I've made entire dishes like mushroom stew with this stuff, and I felt like I ate a brick afterwards. So this is an easy meal. It's also a very filling meal, which is awesome. This also has beans, which is the subject of today's request from my friend. Beans are also high in protein. They're great for that as well. So this is a double whammy of protein, and it's going to be super filling, and it's going to be awesome, and you're going to love it because it's delicious and it's super easy. This is, I guess technically this is a one-pan meal because you're only using one pan. But you can toss everything in this food processor afterwards and everything will be great. And that's all you need to use. If you don't have a food processor, a blender is also good. Blenders work out pretty well for cooking this stuff. Also, if you don't have a blender, you can do this by hand. You're not going to be able to kind of puree the mushrooms, which is one of the things I'm going for in this recipe, but you can do everything else. So you can make it work if you have no access to any of these toys. You can also get cheap blenders and cheap food processors off Amazon, so that's always worth a look. Just check the reviews and make sure they're not terrible. So, I got my mushrooms going. To them, I'm going to add all of this thyme that I already loosened up. There's never such a thing as too much thyme. There's a pun in there, but I'm a little tired and I can't really think of one. But thyme is a flavor enhancer, which is why I don't need a ton of salt on this. It's an herb. It is fresh. You can also get it dried. I hate dry herbs because they're not as good. Right now my entire kitchen smells like this stuff because I was picking at it. So for anyone who's not familiar with thyme, the way that you get these leaves off, because you don't want to use the stems. The stems are gross and chewy and fuck them. But to get thyme in your recipe, you just grab the stem and pinch it, and then you pull one of your pinched fingers down, and there it is. Nice naked stem. There's little branches in there. You want to kind of avoid the branches so you don't stick the branches in your food. And then you can kind of go in and get really specific and pick the leaves off if you really, really want to. I don't want to. I'm tired. Just throw that away. Lots of delicious leafy thyme in here now. It's getting nice and moist. Everything is a beautiful thing. I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit. So if you cook mushrooms for a while, they actually start to shrink, just like other veggies. That's because all the water is leaving them and they're getting smaller and smaller as a result. They get a little more meaty when you do that, because it's now concentrated mushroom instead of big, spongy, moist mushroom. But you don't have to cook them for that long. Kind of mushroom texture of choice, whatever works for you. So, in my description of today, I told you guys we were going to make sexy mushrooms. I don't remember why I figured this out. I just was throwing random stuff in a pan and came up with this, and it worked so well. But I tend to collect ingredients and then forget about them for a while, and I had cream sherry on hand. And one day I was cooking mushrooms and looked at the cream sherry, and I, again, can't remember what the heck I was using it for, but whatever I was like, oh, this will probably go with mushrooms too, because it went with blah, whatever I was cooking. So, cream sherry is the shit, it turns out, especially for meaty stuff. Likely I was adding it to some sort of like Italian dish with meat, but it's so good on mushrooms. And it has the added bonus of helping us deglaze the pan. So, I don't use measurements. We're just going to dump some cream sherry on here. It's going to make this delightful little bubbling sound. And then I just keep the cream sherry next to the stove so I can just dump it in anything I feel like. But I usually cook with cream sherry for mushrooms now. This is how you make sexy mushrooms. Sexy mushrooms have a little alcohol to help them out. Gets them in the mood. So, I'm cooking this down with some cream sherry to boost the flavor. Kind of want it to have like a little bit of a simmer going because we're going to kind of cook this liquid off. We're not going to make a sauce out of it. You don't want to add so much that it's like sitting in liquid. We're just going to have this cream sherry to flavor everything. And the goal is for the mushrooms to soak it up and be delicious. But that is the secret ingredient for sexy mushrooms. So you got your fresh thyme. That's secret number one. And then you add the cream sherry. About the time the mushrooms seem to be finishing their cooking arc, that's when I add that. And before they start shrinking down, because you want them to soak some of the sherry up. And then I give it a good cook for a minute so that some of the alcohol burns off, so that this doesn't give you a stomach ache when you're eating it. But that's a secret to the best tasting, sexiest mushrooms you'll ever eat. They are the shit. So this is finishing up pretty quickly. Like I said, this is a quick meal. I'm going to start adding my other ingredients. so we got our white beans. I drained them. By the way, if you buy salt-added beans, that's not a big deal. If you want to get rid of the salt, put it in a sieve or a colander and just rinse it under water. You can also do what I do, which is I fill the can up, I press the lid down, and I drain everything. So you can get rid of some of that excess salt. So, just add all of the beans. If you're going with dried beans, which again, why would you? Because it's a pain in the ass. Just make sure they're fully cooked and cooled off a bit before you add them to your food processor, blender, / mashing tool. If you don't have a food processor or a blender, you can use a potato masher, you can use a fork, you can use your hand, whatever you want. You just gotta squish the beans. So we added the beans. We're cooking the mushrooms. I'm gonna add a few turns of salt. 2, 3. By the way, I've added less than a teaspoon of salt, which is less than your day's allotment by a lot. I probably added less than a quarter of a teaspoon of salt. I just don't do a lot of salt. You don't need a lot of salt if you're used to not eating a lot of salt. If you're used to eating a lot of salt, good news is you can quit that shit. You just got to give yourself like 2 weeks to get over it, and then you're good to go. You can use a lot less salt and be a lot more healthy, and it's great. All right. The mushrooms have been sexified. And give it 1 more minute at low heat. I'm going to add the lemon juice. So you want to add the lemon juice to the beans. Lemon is an acid. Acids are flavor enhancers. This is why you don't need a lot of salt. There's a lot of flavor enhancers going in this stuff. Alright, this is a nice overly ripe lemon. So I went for my lemons today and they were moldy and disgusting because I sometimes don't refrigerate them because refrigerating makes them hard and difficult to work with. I just cut the moldy parts off and used the lemon. It's not a big deal. You don't have to throw stuff away just because it's started to go bad. It is often very much still fine except for the parts that are starting to go. So, and what's really nice is overly ripe stuff tastes really good. There's like a little bit of a sweetness to the lemon. They're nice and soft and pliable, so I can squeeze this in here without any issue. But yeah, you don't have to dump stuff just because it's starting to go bad. Most of this lemon was quite alright. So for lemon juice, I'm adding a whole lemon. You can add as much or as little lemon as you want. It, again, is a flavor enhancer, so the more lemon, the more vibrant the flavor is in this stuff. Alright, so I'm just going to flip this over, squeeze as much out of it as possible. There, we got our lemon juice. The thyme is on the mushrooms, so I want to get some thyme in here. I also want to get some of this delicious, sexy mushroom flavor in here. So what you do is, you got your pan of cooked mushrooms. Put about 1/3 of these mushrooms into the white bean mixture. We're going to use the rest on top of it when it's done. So I'm not going to use all the mushrooms, plus they're sexy mushrooms. I want to eat some of them. They are delicious. They're still going to be part of the dish. They're just participating in a different way. Alright. So we got sexy mushroom mixture in the white bean dip. That's pretty much it. You can add a few other things. You can add some tahini, which usually goes in hummus. That is a sesame seed spread. Getting text messages. This stuff will really, really, really make it creamy. It's optional. If you have it, if you don't have it, screw it. Don't worry about it. It's not mandatory. I don't think I've ever put tahini in here, but I had it and I was looking at it like, huh. But you don't need to put it in if you don't need to. Lisa, if you're watching, stop texting me, please. I love you. Anyway. So we added all our ingredients to the food processor and or blender and or whatever you are mashing this stuff up with. If you are hand mashing this, I don't recommend adding the mushrooms. You can, but they're not really going to go anywhere. Beans that are cooked are going to squish up nice and easy, but everything else is not going to. So just leave out the mushrooms. You can put them on top when you're done. But everything else goes in here. So we're going to give this a few pulses. I apologize, it might be a little bit loud. So I'm going to pulse just to kind of combine everything. So everything's starting to mash. Now, to make it extra creamy, you're going to add olive oil. So I've got my really good olive oil that I don't use for cooking. I'm going to use that up first. This is the olive oil I buy for flavor. And I've got the generic olive oil I just buy because it's cheap and I like to cook everything in olive oil. So you're going to, as it's going, I'm going to put it on low and then I'm going to pour in the olive oil and that's going to really make it creamy. Didn't have a lot left of that, and it's still a little rough, so I'm going to add a little extra olive oil. Don't worry, I have so much olive oil. Don't even think we're going to miss out on this. Alright, things are still a little bit rough in there, and there's a few mushrooms that are trying to escape. By the way, when you are using a food processor, it really helps if you take a spatula and kind of scrape down the sides. That way, everything gets chopped up evenly. Nothing gets stuck on the side. And this is my super bad habit. I really like to lick the spatula. But that's also a really good way of tasting your food, making sure it's well seasoned. So it needs a little more seasoning. In fact, I'm going to add slightly more salt. The lemon's coming through for sure. And here's the other secret to flavoring stuff. Sometimes things will taste alright. If you pack them up and put them in the fridge, leave them overnight, you take it back out, flavors are so much better. There's something about resting in that cold environment and then going back to it that just really enhances flavor. I have every olive oil ever now. So I'm going to add a little more olive oil to make sure everything is nice and combined. There's the white bean spread. Ta-da! And that's done. So the way I serve this is I take something, usually a piece of toast. I'm going to use some frozen Ezekiel bread right now. For those not familiar, Ezekiel bread is a sprouted grain bread. It's pretty high in protein, which is awesome. Still has gluten in it, definitely not gluten-free or anything like that. There we go. Break my bread apart. I keep Ezekiel bread frozen because it goes bad in about 4 days. They don't add any preservatives to it, so the easiest thing to do, you buy it in the freezer section and you can just keep it in your freezer and then make toast out of it. That's the easiest thing to do with Ezekiel bread. My toaster has a defrost setting, so I'm going to hit that. So, make your toast, you put your white bean spread on it, then I top with mushrooms, and it is awesome. So that's the entire recipe. If you guys have any questions, you can hit me up in the comments, but this is a nice, easy, quick meal. I hope you enjoyed it. We made some really sexy mushrooms. They're so good. Please make them. They are the best thing ever. But yeah, this is a super easy, quick, vegan, healthy, high protein, hits all the markers, good for you meal. So if the next time you're coming home and you're too tired or not feeling like cooking for very long, this is the shortest show I've ever done, clocking in at 23 minutes, and I talked through most of the cooking, so that's how quick this is. And I screwed around with filters for about the first 5 minutes of it. So try it out. Awesome recipe. And again, if you have any questions about it, you can always hit me up. If you have suggestions for meals that you want to see done here, please tell me about them, because I'm running out of ideas and some weird stuff is going to happen otherwise. So if you have any suggestions, put them in the comments. Tell me what to make. Tell me what you want to see. If you guys want to donate for the show, you can donate at JSRockRD on Venmo. If you guys can't afford to donate, I keep this show free and accessible so that people who are having a rough time right now have something that they can access that's not going to cost them anything. If you want to support the show, I use the money for buying groceries to cook this stuff. So it's appreciated, but if not, you're still loved. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will see you next week.